go on like this forever.
Socialists face another test with the Florida primary tomorrow. The socialist movement indicates a shift within the Democrat Party, but House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries says he does not support the Democratic Socialists of America agenda as a whole.
I don't support the DSA agenda as has been articulated by the DSA itself. Now, you're going to have individual members who have been elected in Democratic primaries, and if they are elected in the general in November, will be part of the House Democratic Caucus. It's going to be a broad caucus.
Fox News contributor Hugh Hewitt says Hakeem Jeffries will agree with any Democrat that will help elect him Speaker of the House.
Well, Hakeem wants to save as many seats as he can in the middle. There are 5 parts of the Democratic Party. There's the moderates, the liberals, the leftists. Nancy Pelosi was a leftist, the very left, and then the DSA. Yesterday's New York Post told us that the squad, which is the DSA type, they're going to go from 7 members to 14 members, almost certainly in November. That means if Hakeem Jeffries needs 218 votes to become Speaker, he's going to have to make a deal with those people unless he gets less than 232 votes in the Senate, in the House. It takes 435 members to make up a House, 218 to become Speaker. So he needs 218 votes out of the Democrats. 14 of those will be the no borders, defund the police radicals.
The Texas governor wants Texas educators who engage in inappropriate relationships with students to face at least 10 years in prison. Robert Thornton has more.
Governor Greg Abbott announced the proposal last week and said more than 1,600 allegations of inappropriate educator-student relationships were reported last year, nearly 3 times the number from the previous year. According to World Metrics, fewer than half of teacher sexual abuse cases lead to criminal convictions, while many victims face lasting harm. Brian Kamminker of Mass Resistance says Governor Abbott's proposal is appropriate.
It's actually a worse problem than people realize. I have a friend who, this guy, who when he was in high school had a sexual relationship with one of his female teachers who was married. It affected his whole life. He was never the same after that. He knew the husband, too, the guy, because he would hang out at the house, and he was never right after that.
He said the problem seems to be getting worse.
I mean, we're dealing with one school district, Redlands, California, where the school system was almost shut down by the state over these kinds of things. It sort of got to a point where, people were arrested and sued and all of that.
Texas Scorecard reports that Texas has ways to fight the issue, and this includes offenders losing their teaching certificates and pensions, penalizing administrators who fail to properly report misconduct, restricting improper electronic communications between educators and students, and creating the state's Do Not Hire registry.
ICE arrests have reached historic highs, while some are still doubling down on wanting to abolish ICE. Border Czar Tom Homan discusses border control.
What they're failing to tell the people is we're enforcing the laws that they wrote, that they enacted. We're not making this up. We're doing the same job we did under any other president, except under the last 4 years under Joe Biden, ICE wasn't allowed to enforce the law.
There's more news online at afn.net and on the AFN mobile app. I'm Rusty Pugh.
Hello, I'm Steve Crampton, Assistant General Counsel for the American Family Association. The mission of AFA is to inform, equip, and activate individuals to strengthen the moral foundations of American culture and give aid to the church, here and abroad, in its task of fulfilling the Great Commission. Our vision is to be a leading organization in biblical worldview training in the interest of cultural transformation.
Thank you for standing with the American Family Association. Welcome to Real Truth for Today with Pastor Jeff Schreve, Senior Pastor of First Baptist Church in Texarkana, Texas. Now, here's Pastor Jeff.
Well, good Monday morning and welcome to Real Truth for Today. Pastor Jeff Schreve here. Wanted to read to you from Psalm 145, a Psalm of David. He says this, I will extol you, my God, O King, and I will bless your name forever and ever. Every day I will bless you, and I will praise your name forever and ever. Great is the Lord, and highly to be praised, and his greatness is unsearchable. One generation shall praise your works to another, and shall declare your mighty acts. I think about that Psalm 145, verse 4, one generation shall praise your works to another. You know, it's the job of the older generation to pass the baton of faith to the younger generation. And if we don't do that, Christianity is just one generation from being extinct. We know God always has a remnant, but it's our job to pass our faith to our children, our grandchildren, and keep it going. Well, we want to talk about that today and how we can do that and how we can be bold in our faith, courageous in our faith, how we can have churches that are bold and courageous, that are engaging as salt and light in the culture. And to help me do that is my friend, Dr. Bob Pearle. Bob is the pastor of Birchman Baptist Church in Fort Worth, Texas. Been there since 1998.
Yes, sir. Almost 30 years.
Yes. That's pretty amazing. In today's world, Bob, you know, we don't have a lot of guys that have that kind of long tenure.
Yes.
Guys tend to bail out or bounce around. So in your ministry, how many positions did you have before you came to Birchman?
This Birchman is my fourth pastorate. And Birchman is actually an unusual church because I followed a man who was there for 29 years.
Oh, wow.
So for almost 60 years, they've had two pastors.
As we know, we learned that from First Baptist Dallas. You had George W. Truett, who was there for, how long, 40-something years?
Almost, yeah.
And then W.A., Criswell was there for 50 years. And then after that, they started to...
Yeah, you had several pastors between Dr. Criswell and Robert Jeffers.
Yeah. It is hard to follow a guy that's greatly beloved. And yeah, I mean, I was talking to a friend of mine the other day who loves Alabama football. And it's like, how do you follow Nick Saban? I mean, whoever you are, you're not Nick Saban. I mean, I don't think you're going to be better in terms of his football prowess, you know, and so you can only go down.
Right. And, you know, I am blessed to be able to survive that. I did not know if I was going to survive following my the previous pastor there. My first several years were very, very difficult. But generally, the second guy following somebody of that tenure doesn't. In fact, Adrian Rogers used to talk about the third dog. His illustration was for you had R.G. Lee.
Right.
And he was there for 33 years. And then you had Ramsey Pollard, who came and was the president of the Tennessee Baptists. He only made it 10 years, and Pollard lived in the shadow of Lee. They wanted to know, are you going to wear a white suit like he does? Are you going to kneel like he does? And so forth. And so then after Pollard, then you had Adrian Rogers.
Right.
And the way Adrian always explained it to us young seminary students, he said, you know, it's like a dog. You get a dog and you just love that dog, and the dog dies. So then you want to get a dog just like that dog that died.
Right.
And you get it and you realize that's not the same dog. And then when you don't have that dog anymore, now you get a dog you want.
Right.
And that's the way Adrian says that why he was so successful there.
Okay, so Bob, for you, when you came following a guy that had been there for that long, 29 years,
29.
You said? Did he stay in the church?
Yes.
Okay, which is kind of... in the world of pastors, we kind of know you don't stay in the church. You leave to help the other guy out. There's nothing written in stone on that, but that's just kind of a common courtesy. Did you ever have discussions with him about maybe you should leave?
Very much so. It was very difficult. And so I don't want to get into it because even his family is still in the church, and they do great, but with him, there was some issues that we had, and we had talked about it, and he just decided, okay, I'll just be quiet. Because at first, he actually fought against me.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And so it's just one of those things. But, you know, God was grateful, gracious, and I was blessed because I just kept my nose to the grind and continue to do what I believe God wanted me to do, and here I am.
Well, you were a young guy, relatively.
43.
Yeah, relatively speaking. I talked yesterday about, I'm doing a series on Numbers, Bob, and so we were in Numbers 11, how the people groan and complain, and Moses said, God, why did you give me this assignment? If this is the way you're going to treat me, just kill me. And so I just said how, you don't want to be part of the rabble that stirs people up, that gets people, focused on the wrong thing, to where the pastor wants to die. And I told the church, I said, I've never had that prayer, God kill me, but I have thought about God kill this person or that person. And obviously tongue in cheek.
Yeah, sure.
But, it is, people don't realize that can be very, very difficult. One of the things that Debbie and I experienced, because God called me in the ministry when I was in the secular workforce, and I'd been doing that for 10 plus years. When you're working outside the church, church is your oasis. Church is where you go to recharge. And when you're a pastor, your work and your church are all the same place. And so if things go haywire in your work, it's in your church, your oasis becomes a difficult spot. That can be really hard for your family.
Oh, it was very hard, and I thank God that I have a very faithful, loving, praying wife, and she spent many, many hours in prayer. She knew what I was going through. Our son at the time, who was in high school, we did our best to protect him from all of the yah-yahing that was going on in the church, because we did not want him to wind up like a lot of pastor kids that when they get up on their own, they know what's going on, and so they don't want to have anything to do with the Lord or the church.
Yeah.
So we're grateful that God protected our son in that regard, because he loved the church. He came. He was very faithful, and then he actually became a pastor as well, wanted to be a pastor, which surprised us.
Well, okay, Bob, when we think about that, we want our churches to be healthy. We want it to be a genuine place, just like a healthy family. Every family is going to have issues. No family has an idyllic existence. We grew up with shows like Father Knows Best or Leave It to Beaver, and that family was always so idyllic in the way they sat down, and Ward always wore his tie to dinner.
Right.
And, June always had pearls and a dress on when she vacuumed. Well, that's just not real life. But we were kind of conditioned, well, that's what it's supposed to be like. But I think one of the things that can hurt people is when you get to see guys become deacons, and all of a sudden they see that some people are upset about this, that, or the other, and there's like, I thought everybody just loved each other here. And people are people. You deal with people, and not all people are walking with the Lord.
That's correct, and that's one of the great shocks of new staff members come on, or even in some of the assistants that you have working at the church that have come from the outside world, and they come and they've got this kind of utopian vision that everybody in the church is nice and sweet and loves everybody, and they see the other side of that. And so you have to guide them to say, look, everybody has bad days, and not everybody walks with the Lord, and not everybody is at the same place in the Lord.
Right.
And you've got to understand that this is where you have to learn to forgive. You've got to pray for them. You've got to overlook it, and you've got to go on. Don't let what somebody else is doing that is not biblical and not following the Lord, don't let that hinder your walk with God.
Well, you think about Acts chapter 15, Paul and Barnabas going on the second missionary journey. They got in such a big argument that they couldn't keep going together.
That's right, and they had to split up.
And so that is, I think Paul is arguably the greatest Christian who ever lived. For sure, the most knowledgeable Christian who ever lived. But if he had a run-in, and Barnabas, the son of encouragement, it's like, if any two guys ought to get along, it's those two guys, and yet they hit an impasse.
They did, and sadly today, that's how too many churches begin, because people in churches don't get along, and so one splits from another, and many of the churches are started like that through fights. But the good news about that is Barnabas came back along, and later in Paul's ministry, he was there supporting him and helping him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I heard, I think it was MacArthur that said, okay, Barnabas should have acquiesced to Paul because Paul was the leader, but he thought that Paul was probably not right in not wanting to take John Mark, not wanting to give him another chance. And it all had to do with he bailed out. I don't want guys that bail out. And that was basically Paul's attitude. You fool me once, shame on me, on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. But it is interesting how in ministry, and God works that together for good. Now you had two teams going out as opposed to just one. But it can be difficult. And people that are maybe more naive in the faith just think everything should be idyllic, and it's not.
It's not, and because people are people. We all are sinful. We all have that sin nature, and we're different. And so what may trigger something in one person won't trigger it in another person. And so that's where we all need to learn to forgive. And like in the Bible, the one another's in the Bible. We need to pray for one another, encourage one another. And so that's where we just need to learn to grow in our faith and realize that not everybody's going to do things the way we do it.
Okay, Bob, you went to Southwestern Seminary?
No, I went to Mid-America Baptist Seminary.
Oh, you did? Okay. Yeah. That was in the early days.
Yes. I started in 1977. It was the first full school year in Memphis. They had moved to Memphis in 76, but they were not in the Jewish synagogue at that time because it was being renovated. So they had a half a year, so they had the spring of 77, only a half a year in the Jewish synagogue. And then in the fall of 77 is when I started, and so that was the full, complete year in the synagogue.
How many students back then?
Oh, I don't remember, 350, 400.
That's pretty. Like that. That's a lot for a startup.
Yeah, it was 5 years old at that time. Okay. But this is another heartbreak today, too, because every seminary, everyone, is the enrollment in the MDiv students is declining all across the board everywhere.
Right, and that is the degree for a pastor.
Exactly.
A Master of Divinity. Okay, so when you were in Memphis, you went to Adrian's church?
No, actually, I was on staff at First Baptist Church of Hughes, Arkansas, 40 miles west of Memphis. So I commuted 40 miles every day for my master's degree. However, Adrian, Dr. Rogers, spoke in chapel and spoke in classes and so forth, and we had a lot of interaction with him during that time.
He's interesting. So tomorrow, Steve Rogers is coming on the program.
Oh, great.
For some weird reason, I've had a couple of dreams about Adrian and being in meetings with, revival meetings or something with him, and it's just kind of out of the blue. And so I said, that's kind of weird. I mean, Adrian's been gone for 20 years. And I said, I'm going to call Steve. And, Steve sounds just like Adrian. He's got that voice just like Adrian. So we're gonna talk about Adrian tomorrow. But you're listening to Real Truth for Today, and my guest is Dr. Bob Pearle in the studio. Bob has been the pastor of Birchman Baptist Church since 1998. He's also the pastor or the author of The Courageous Church Standing Boldly for Truth in a Cowardly World. You're listening to Real Truth for Today on American Family Radio. We'll be right back.
Hi, I'm Jan Harper. If you're a pastor's wife, you know both the blessings and the unique challenges that come with the life you and your husband live daily. We call it living in the fishbowl.
Details have been announced for the 2026 Pastors and Wives Fishbowl Retreat. Once again, this year's retreat will be at Pickwick Landing State Park in Counce, Tennessee. From October 20th through the 22nd, pastors and their wives will enjoy rest, renewal, and fellowship hosted by Pastor Bert Harper, Director of Marriage, Family, and Pastoral Ministries at AFA and co-host of Exploring the Word on AFR, and his wife, Jan. Our special speaker will be J.J. Jasper of AFR. Your registration fee covers lodging, meals, and materials. All you need to do is get there. The annual AFA Pastors and Wives Fishbowl Retreat, October 20th through 22nd. Learn more and register at repairingthefoundations.net.
We'd love to see you there.
If we do all of those other things, but the gospel is not being proclaimed, we will continue to see the erosion of our nation from the inside. Religion informs politics. Politics touches every aspect of our lives. And as the scripture discusses that the Lord has made his people to be living epistles, what story are we a part of?
Join Abraham Hamilton III on the Hamilton Corner, weekdays at 5 p.m. Central on American Family Radio.
This is Discovering the Jewish Jesus with Rabbi Schneider.
Jesus is God, Yeshua HaMashiach. Jesus Christ is God in the flesh. Our walk with Jesus, it's not about religion. It has to do with the Spirit. We're led by the Spirit. I am calling the church back to her Jewish roots.
Tune in Sundays at 8 a.m. Central Time, right here on American Family Radio.
I'm Rick Scarborough, and this is my take. The 2026 World Cup brought hundreds of thousands of visitors from 48 nations to 11 American cities. Each arrived carrying an image of America shaped by headlines, politics, and stereotypes. And most left surprised, saying, America's nothing like the media told us. Fans marveled at the everyday things we take for granted. The freedom of travel, overflowing superstores, oversized meal portions, and above all, the warmth and hospitality of the people they met here. The lasting story isn't the scoreboard. It's how quickly first-hand experience overturned expectation, replacing caricature with genuine admiration for a great nation. When a stranger's open heart meets a stranger's open hand, the lies of the headlines fall away. The world sees the goodness we've let politics obscure. I'm Rick Scarborough, and that's my take.
This is Real Truth for Today. Podcasts of the program are available on the podcast page at afr.net. Now, back to Pastor Jeff Schreve.
Welcome back to the program. Pastor Jeff here talking to my friend Dr. Bob Pearle, the pastor of Birchman Baptist Church in Fort Worth, Texas. Now, you're very close to the seminary, aren't you, in proximity?
Yes, we're about 15 minutes from Southwestern.
Okay. So we had Dean Sieberhagen here, and Dean had talked, I think, had he been to your church?
No.
He hasn't? Okay. He was talking about Birchman when he was here, but Dean and I have been good friends for a long time. He came and did a whole, we had a whole Sunday on Islam. I know you just had a weekend on Islam with our friend William J. Federer.
That's correct.
And Federer he's got to be one of the most knowledgeable guys I've ever met.
Yeah, he is a walking encyclopedia of Islam, of American history,
world history,
many things.
It's amazing. You can ask him. I see him at the National Religious Broadcasters Convention, and I'll just throw out a date. I said, "Okay, Bill, here is 450, BC. Tell me what was going on." And he can do it. He can tell you who the players are. It's amazing. So, good friend. We're doing a trip to Washington, D.C. with Dr. Gary Frazier, and I'm leading about 20 of our church members there. And Bill is going to be there to take us through the Capitol building and explain all the history of everything. So, looking forward to that. Okay, so Psalm 145, verse 4. One generation shall praise your works to another and shall declare your mighty acts. Bob, from your perspective as a pastor for many, many years, how are we doing, you think, as a church in general, passing the baton to the next generation?
Struggling.
Mm-hmm.
And this is one thing, too, that the younger generation is different from our generation. It seems to me that when I first came to Birchman, let's put it that way, many generations attended church together. And you'd have the grandparents and the parents and the grandchildren, and they all came together. They all worshiped together. Then they would go to lunch or whatever. I have noticed, though, in the past decade or two, that what's happened is a lot of the younger generation, they want to go out on their own. They don't want to worship with their parents. Now, there's probably many reasons for that, one of which their styles. They don't like the style of the way the parents worship and so forth. Even though there's so much similarity there, it's not as radically different as one would think. But they just want to kind of be out on their own, and so that's what they're doing. And to me, I think that is not as productive as it could be. There is something very beneficial, I think, of all of the generations worshiping together, to be there. You know, our son died 5 years ago this Wednesday, and he was a pastor, but when he was in school, even in college, and after he got married, we all worshiped together. It wasn't until he broke out on his own to start in ministry that we separated. But there was so much fun to be at, and it's just a blessing to be at church worshiping. There your son is, your children are, the grandchildren. I mean, there's I don't know, maybe it's just because I'm getting older and I'm a granddad that I like everybody to be together. Yeah. But you're seeing more of a fragmentation of our families today, for a variety of reasons.
You know, I think because I was at Champion Forest in Houston, and that was with Damon Shook, and that was my home church. That's where I met my wife. All my kids got saved and baptized at Champion Forest, so that's been a special place for a long time. But in those bigger cities, it's more transient, and so people move in and they're looking for friends, and Houston was a great place. It's a terrible place as far as climate.
Yes.
But it's a great place as far as people. And in the church, we didn't have a lot of generations. And I still remember one of the guys on the staff, Bill Upchurch, he was at Green Acres in Tyler before he came to Champion Forest, and he said, I wasn't as familiar with all the generations being in the church because smaller towns tend to have that. We have that a lot at First Baptist Texarkana. And I remember Larry Sims, our associate pastor for 44 years, he told me, he said, now, Jeff, just remember this. When you're talking to somebody, just remember they're related to
somebody,
other people in the church. So don't ever say anything negative about anybody, because you don't know who's related. Everybody's related to somebody in this area. And so that took a little getting used to, because I didn't have that experience at Champion Forest.
Yeah, and I had that at Birchman, too, when I first came. It's still there today, but not quite to the degree it was when I first came.
But the fracturing of, okay, this group meets, this is our contemporary service, we meet over there. They don't really have much to do with the classic service or whatever name that people give it. Right. We just have one service, and so everybody's together.
That's what we do, too. We have one service and everybody's together. The music varies. One Sunday it's going to be more traditional. One Sunday it might be more contemporary. But see, that's the way a family works. In a family, it's always give and take. When you go out to eat, somebody may want a hamburger, somebody may want Italian. So you compromise. Okay, today we're going to have a hamburger. Next week or next time we'll go eat Italian. That's the way a family works, and a church is nothing but a large family.
Yeah, that's good. You know what I've noticed too, Bob, and you're a little more mature than I am, not a whole lot, but you've been at this longer than I have. From a preaching standpoint, because culture is so fractured, and we grew up watching the same shows. Everybody knew about Gilligan's Island and Hogan's Heroes and All in the Family and these shows. You could pull illustrations from culture And everybody seemed to know, even commercials, where's the beef?
Right.
Everybody knew that. Not everybody, I mean, everything now, it's difficult to get an illustration from culture that everybody knows what you're talking about.
That's true, because not everybody's watching the same thing. But this is part of what we're seeing in the decline of culture as well. For the shows that you mentioned, Father's Knows Best, Leave It to Beaver, that
right.
Beavers was my favorite. But all of those, you had what people refer to today as the nuclear family. I prefer the term natural family. That's in God's order. That's the way it generally was. However, today, and the comedy shows today, if you'll notice, the father is always the goofus. The mother is always the one that knows how to fix everything.
Right.
And that's just turning everything on its head today. Sadly, that shows how men today, though, have abrogated their responsibility as a whole and are not leading in their families. And when there's a vacuum, somebody's going to do it, and all too often it's the women.
Bob, from a standpoint of preaching and our churches making a difference, being salt and light, it seems like the culture has made more difference in the church than the church has made in the culture. Charlie Kirk pointed that out, and I think masterfully. And we have Tim Wildman coming to First Baptist Texarkana this Wednesday night. And he's going to talk about being salt and light and making a difference in the culture. I don't know if we just naturally knew that we were supposed to do that back, 30, 40 years ago. But today it seems like people don't realize. Take voting, for instance. Your vote makes a difference. And if the culture influences that and not your Christianity, something's wrong.
Exactly. The problem is, for years and years, referring to your illustration of voting, it has been attacked. The church has been attacked by the secular culture for speaking on any what they consider cultural issues. And so therefore many pastors are not wanting to do it, and what they've been told in this lie, as we all know, it's taken out of context, this separation of church and state, of which the Danbury Baptist with Thomas Jefferson. And we know that's not true, but get back to it. What has happened now, people consciously or unconsciously are dividing their lives into two segments, a secular part and a sacred part. And even though they may not consciously be doing this, they'll think, well, their sacred part is, well, that's when I go to church, and that's the sacred thing, and then maybe in my family and so forth. But then other than that, everything else is secular. Well, no. As a Christian, everything is
right. The Lord is over all.
Lord over all. And so that means that when I go to the grocery store, I don't leave my Christianity at the front door of the grocery store.
Right.
When I go to work, I don't leave my Christianity at the front door of that. When I go to school, I don't leave it at the front door of the school. In other words, it's where I am in all times. I am to exhibit and live out my Christian faith. And so people today are afraid, it seems, to do that.
Well, the coming together is kind of like the huddle in football. When we come together for church, that's we take a break from the game, so to speak, and we're going to be encouraged, we're going to be built up, and then you go back out. Now you're on.
Right.
And people don't see it like that. So, Bob, I talked yesterday about the grumbling of the children of Israel. That was their default setting. They're constantly doing that. But we constantly do that too. And the Bible says, Philippians 2:14, do all things without grumbling or disputing, that's arguing, so that you will prove yourselves to be blameless and innocent, children of God above reproach in the midst of a crooked and perverse generation, among whom you appear as lights in the world. I went on a mission trip with a friend of mine who was from Ecuador, and we led this mission trip to Venezuela, and he told us before we went, he said, listen, Do not complain about the food, about the accommodations, about how hot it is. He said, these people look up to us as the mature Christians, and we're coming to help them grow. And he said, if you complain, it just ruins your testimony. And Bob, we have a lot of complaining Christians, and it doesn't help our testimony. So if you want to make a difference at work, be somebody that works hard. Be somebody that others look up to. Don't be somebody that participates in the office gossip or leads the office gossip or constantly whines and gripes and complains about this and that and the other. Yeah, we need to point out issues in our culture that are not good, but we don't need to be gripers. We need to be praisers, and we need to be people that are focusing others on look to Jesus. He's the author and perfecter of faith.
There again, the one another's. Encourage one another, lift up one another, and we do that. We should be doing that by not complaining, and when somebody falls short, encourage them. We've got too many people that just speak on the obvious. Yeah. Well, we all know that this was wrong. Okay, so how you fix it? Mm-hmm. That's what we need, is people to do that. The idea of complaining, and as I've preached through the scriptures and come to even the spiritual gifts, I remind the people, criticism is not a biblical gift. And yes. So, but a lot of people seem to have the gift of criticism.
Yeah. Well, I remember Damon Shook told me this one time. We were talking about guys that are very gifted in business and can run, multi-million-dollar companies. And Damon told me, he said, yeah, I may not be able to do what that guy does, but he can't do what I do either.
That's right.
And so he said, you have to be called to be a pastor. Adrian used to say this, the ministry is a wonderful calling. It's a terrible profession. And if you're not called to do it, you will get rolled by the demands of it.
Well, in my almost 50 years of ministry, the one thing that has sustained me through the very difficult times is that God called me. Mm-hmm. And because God has called me, He will get me through these times. Yeah, you want to throw your hands up, you want to quit, but you can't, because God has called you.
Right. I had an evangelism professor at Southeastern when I was in seminary there, and he said, you're really called when you throw in the towel and God throws it back.
Yeah, that's true.
It's like, you can't quit. I'm not going to let you quit.
That's right.
Because I've called you. And the gifts and the calling are irrevocable. Romans 11, I think it's 29. So Bob, we, as pastors, what would you say? We're getting ready to come up on a break, and then we'll be taking calls in the next segment. But what would you say to encourage younger guys starting out in their ministry, starting out in their pastorate? They can hit a lot of obstacles. Things can be tough. Churches can be tough. What would you say to them to encourage them to keep going?
First off, I think it would be helpful for them if they had an older mentor pastor that could walk with them, that they could relate to, that they could consult with, and get some wisdom from that person. They also need contemporaries, maybe other preacher friends that they can talk to and complain to them about what's going on and get how they do it, instead of complaining to their members or other people in the church. They need those people to help bounce off things and to speak out against their frustrations.
Amen to that. Well, we're talking to Dr. Bob Pearle. When we come back from the break, we'll be taking your calls, 888-589-8840. That's 888-589-8840. If you have a question or a comment or brief testimony, we'd love to hear from you. So give us a call and let's talk.
AFA Stream is a resource for life-changing instruction and information, a source of wholesome entertainment and relaxation, plus access to some of your favorite AFA shows. You can watch a lot of content for free, or you can become a Great Commission partner. Then you'll not only open the door to everything AFA Stream has to offer, you'll get benefits like a subscription to The Stand and some really nice exclusives. Why not get started today? It's easy. Visit stream.afa.net. Every day, AFA offers biblical insight on issues that others aren't willing to touch in the hopes that you'll become a world changer. That's why we're offering an in-depth worldview training course called Activate. 13 different professors teaching 18 sessions, all available online, including a printed workbook to help you apply what you've learned and 1-year access to AFA streaming content to give you even more resources. Find out more about Activate and sign up today at activate.afa.net.
Hello, this is Walker Wildman. Midterm elections are less than 90 days away. America will soon choose between continuing to return government to biblical values or turning away from these values. We could even lose the U.S. Supreme Court. We could see Trump administration officials impeached by a left-wing Congress. We could also see doors for righteous government continue to swing open, or they could quickly close. You can play an important role in the upcoming election. Your generous gift will help AFA Action and our voter education arm, iVoter Guide, inform and mobilize many more biblical voters to make an impact for Christ in the upcoming elections. Every dollar you give has 6 times the impact due to our over 60 partner organizations spreading the word about iVoter Guide. And we have an extensively trained volunteer outreach program. To give, go to afaaction.net. That's afaaction.net, afaaction.net.
Your Caregiver Minute with Peter Rosenberger.
Remember the disciples brought the guy that was born blind to Jesus. Who sinned, this man or his parents? And Jesus said to him in the New Southern Translation, boys, y'all got it all wrong. This is done for God's glory. So whose glory are we looking for? Somebody who's looking for their own glory will do almost anything to feel better. Somebody who's willing to trust God will trust Him no matter what's going on around him. And I will go back to my wife. I give her such amazing props for what she has taught me coming out of surgery after losing her remaining leg. They're taking her to intensive care following surgery. She's halfway sedated. Both legs are gone. Her hands are lifted heavenward, and she was singing, "Praise God, from whom all blessings flow." It was one of the most powerful moments that I've ever witnessed. I know that what we carry as caregivers is difficult, it's brutal, it's vexing at times, but we can learn to be content in it.
Hope for the Caregiver with Peter Rosenberger. Saturday mornings at 8 Eastern, 7 Central on American Family Radio.
If you'd like to contact Pastor Jeff, email pastorjeff@fromhisheart.org. Now, back to Real Truth for Today with Pastor Jeff Schreve.
Welcome back to the program. Pastor Jeff here, talking to my friend Dr. Bob Pearle, the pastor of Birchman Baptist Church in Fort Worth, Texas. He's been there almost 30 years, getting ready to celebrate 30 years. And Bob, Lord willing, you're going to be there for 30 years?
Yes, sir. Lord willing, and He gives me strength, and I'm still alive.
Yes, amen to that. I had a conversation with Jerry Vines just about a week ago. Jerry's 89 years old and still sharp as a tack. And, he retired fairly young, as we think about that, 68 years old. And he told me, he said, I didn't lose my fire for preaching, but I lost my fire for pastoring. And First Baptist Jacksonville, a large church, he said, I knew it was just time for me. We haven't really touched on this, Bob, but how do you think, and no doubt you've probably talked to some guys, how do you prepare for the future as far as transitioning, and when does the Lord want me to transition to a different position?
Well, I've always believed that you need to go until God says stop. Mm-hmm. And so as long as God gives me good health, as long as He gives me fire in my belly mm-hmm. and a vision, I want to continue. So right now, I'm not looking at stopping, so I don't know really how to answer that question. But I do know that in the day and the time that the Lord wants me to hang it up, I will not quit preaching.
Right.
That's just what God's called me to do. I tell everybody I'll preach at the drop of a hat, and I'll drop the hat. But I want to, I will slow down, but I will never stop. I don't believe that retirement's in the Bible.
Well, it's like our friend Steve Brumbelow.
Exactly.
He, I think he was he 70 years old when he stepped down from the pastorate?
Yes.
And then he started preaching overseas, and had a great ministry there. And so, you never stop serving the Lord. And I had Paige Patterson. I got to sit down with him just last week, and Paige is, I think he's 84 years old, but he said, hey, one of the things about getting older, you got to stay busy. You got to be doing things. He says he's working on 4 books.
Yes.
And so he's got lots going on. We're going to air that program this Friday with Dr. Paige Patterson. But it is very rewarding to talk to these guys that are seasoned in the faith and that have been there, done that, been around the block. As you said, with young pastors, you need to find an older guy that can mentor you, that can help you navigate through some of the rough waters so you don't step on the landmines, which is easy to do as a young guy.
It's very easy to do because you don't see them. The landmines many times are camouflaged because your lack of experience, you can't see it. But an older pastor can see that threat, that danger, and warn the younger pastor.
People know about Isaiah 40:31. It's a very famous verse. But what it says before that, it says, though young men grow weary and tired, and vigorous young men stumble badly. We have vigorous young men that are called by God, but you can stumble badly if you're not careful. And sometimes you have zeal, but not according to knowledge, as it says about the Jews. And you can do something that's not wise, and you can get yourself fired for it at a church.
Well, that's true. And I remember even before I was pastoring, though, I can remember, and I look back upon my life of faith, and I can remember how early on I had so much zeal. But, man, I did some of the dumbest things. But you have zeal without knowledge, and that's the beauty. You can't teach that. Maturity is walking with the Lord over time. Mm-hmm. You just don't, you can't take a pill, you can't read it, and all of a sudden, boom, you're mature. That takes time.
Right, it really does. We're going to the phone lines, 888-589-8840. That's 888-589-8840. If you have a question, a comment, a brief testimony, we'd love to hear from you. And we have Chris on the line from Texas. Chris, welcome to Real Truth for Today.
Yes, thanks for taking my call. I wanted to say I was blessed to attend your church last to hear Bill Federer. So thank you for hosting him. I loved it. And I actually had to go and figure out how I could find that PowerPoint to share it with people. I had several friends that couldn't make it, and I found it, and I shared it everywhere. I had to listen to it 3 more times. So it was very fast. He's very knowledgeable. Yes. And I had to rewind it, the images again. But if you go to AmericanMinute.com, that's Bill Federer's website.
Yes.
And then another one is with YouTube.com/@Bill Federer. He spoke at Jack Hibbs' church, and it's on there as well. So
yes.
If you go, you can type in the entire history of Islam and Muhammad in 68 minutes, and it's at real life Jack Hibbs. It was phenomenal. Thank you for hosting him.
Yes. Well, we had him a while back, and Bob just had him, and Bill. Listening to Bill Federer is like drinking from a fire hydrant. Right. I mean, it's coming at you. Right. And as we said, Bob, if he didn't have PowerPoint, it would be really hard to follow.
Couldn't follow. And what's interesting, too, is his email, or it's called the American Minute.
Yes.
It's really not an American Minute. It should be the American Half Hour, because you just go through his stuff that he sends you, and
it's chock full of stuff.
Yeah, it takes you more than a minute to read it. It takes you several minutes.
Well, I think the amazing thing to me, and I love Bill. He's just got a great heart, such a sweet-spirited guy, but his ability to recall all those details, dates, names, places, and keep it all together. I don't know how he does that.
That's amazing to me, because we're probably around the same age, and I have to stop and think sometimes about when was that, who was that.
Right.
I mean, it just rolls off his tongue.
Right. Yeah, something else. So for our listeners out there, if you've never heard Bill Federer, I encourage you, just as Chris was saying, go to YouTube, go to his American Minute, and William J. Federer, he's got great books, chock full of information. He stands for the truth. He recognizes the dangers that are facing America, the Red-Green Alliance, as you talked about, with Islam joining arms with the Marxists. This is a serious concern.
He also has a great book on socialism.
Mm-hmm. He really does. Well, thank you, Chris. I appreciate that. We have Paul on the line from Texas. Paul, welcome to Real Truth for Today.
Yes, I just wanted to echo what your guest and the point you were making about having totally different worship style services. I think there was a church I went to, and we had a new building, and we moved to a new building, and the youth minister just remodeled the whole old building to where it looked like some kind of nightclub for 20-somethings, to be honest. And that in of itself wasn't the problem, but the problem was when you create an atmosphere of like, okay, here's the worship service and center where we're going to have, to use the skinny jeans and the loud rock music and other things, and then here's where the old folks go. You create this, I would say, artificial segregation, like, well, there's your God and your culture, and then here's our God and our culture, as opposed to melding some combinations of both and creating that worship should be a unifying experience from, 4 years old up to, 84 years old and beyond,
Yeah, that's a good point, Paul. Bob, when you think about, okay, so the Jews, they sang out of the Psalms. That was the Jewish songbook. And it doesn't seem like they had the younger generation wanted to do different kind of music. It's just like that's just what they did.
Right. Well, and that's why it talked about you move one generation teaches the next generation, and that's Deuteronomy 6:4. Mm-hmm. And you're supposed to teach the other generations. Today, and I agree with the listener. I understand pastors wanting to build their congregations. Every pastor wants their churches to grow, and so they think, well, if I have this contemporary service, which those of us who are older say, well, that's like a rock band and so forth, and then you have the other. And when I say the other, I'm not talking about just like 1950 singing out of the hymns and that's it, but there can be a medium in that, because there is some good worship music that's written today. Every generation has it. Mm-hmm. The problem is, though, you are really having two separate churches in one, and you are creating a philosophy, a difference there that can bite the pastor over time.
Well, okay, Bob, I don't know what you think about this, but multi-campus churches, I've never felt led to do that. To me, it used to be, way back when, if a church sensed that, hey, we need a church over there, they just started another church over there. Now, I think churches ought to start churches. I don't think outside agencies should start churches. But I think these campuses that beam in the pastor, I don't see that in the New Testament.
No, from my perspective, that's not biblical. In fact, in my first book, The Vanishing Church, Searching for Significance in the 21st Century, and you can get it on Amazon. That book, the thesis primarily of that book is that the more a church stumbles over herself to become relevant to society, the more irrelevant they become. And so all of these satellite campuses, and as I point out in that book, what is that doing but nothing but building the ego of that senior pastor? Because what you just said is the historical way that we would plant new churches. You'd take some members out of your church, and let's say we needed a church on the east side, so 30 to 50 people would go plant that church, and then when that church was able financially to stand on its own, you cut them loose, just like you do your children, and let them, under the lordship of Christ, do that. But the problem is now, because of technology, well, we think we can do that. Well, there are many good pastors. And so these satellite churches, that is a business or a corporate approach to the church. Mm-hmm. You are franchising the church.
Right. You're McDonald's.
And Mac Church. Mm-hmm. And so I don't believe that that's biblical at all.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. Well, we have Linda on the line from Texas. Linda, how are you today?
I am fine. You talk about the word encouragement. I get encouraged every time I listen to your program.
Thank you.
I wanted to talk about how our pastors need to be encouraged. And I take notes every Sunday, and I pay attention to one thing in particular that really stands out to me. And then I'm able to kind of share that with him, and it encourages him. And I looked at Isaiah 55. I pray... there's like a little room in our church, and I've been going to my church for 40 years, and this man went from worship leader to assistant pastor, and now he is our pastor. But this word, so my word that comes from my mouth will not return to me empty, but will accomplish what I please and prosper what I send it to do. And that's what I see. What I'm saying here is we really need to encourage our pastors. Encourages us to take notes, and so I just wanted to call and say that they need that. They need to know we are listening, and they need to know that we are hearing what they're saying and called.
Yeah, amen to that. Well, I appreciate it, Linda. You always encourage me, and I'm so grateful. Well, we have time for one more call. We have Roy from New Hampshire on the line. Roy, go ahead.
Hey, Pastor Jeff, I just wanted to say something. There's a curse, and I think it's in Isaiah 3, and it goes on and talks about where your children will be your oppressors and your women will rule over you. And what I'm saying is the problem with the church, the modern church, is that we have allowed women to dominate the pulpit and have allowed women to dominate leadership in the church. And so when you have women in leadership, this has allowed Islam to roll in our nation. They don't respect women and children. They only respect male dominance. And so that's what has happened in our country. That is what has happened in our churches. We have feminized our churches. We have allowed women in the pulpit. I mean, I'm not saying women can't teach, but Paul has outlined clearly leadership roles. He outlined that clearly, and so many churches don't want to even abide by that.
Yeah, that's a great point, Roy. We need to do church the way God set it up, and if we don't, He's not going to bless that.
That's correct.
Well, Bob, thanks for being my guest today. I appreciate it so much, my friend. I appreciate your friendship. I appreciate your stand for biblical truth and to speak the truth in love. That's what we're commanded to do. I encourage all pastors to do that. Don't be afraid. Don't be a coward. Be courageous. And remember what God told Joshua. Have I not commanded you, be strong and courageous, do not tremble or be dismayed, for the Lord your God is with you wherever you go. God bless you. Thanks for listening today on American Family Radio. Shine and share, and the Lord will use you as His witness. God bless you.